Well, I moved to Arizona. Also, I got married. Sorry to the 9% of my audience that is female, but I'm officially off the market. The past few months, I've had the opportunity to shoot some pretty cool commercials. So we're gonna go over those, break down the lighting. Replicating natural light can be pretty challenging, even if you have 18Ks, mole beams, condors, all of that. That's kind of what I want to focus on today, making them look natural with less, so to speak. You can do a lot with a 1200D or 2, or in this case, 3. We'll start off pretty simple. This is a spot I shot for Quick Trip, directed by the homie Cameron McQueen. He's actually the best man at my wedding, so shout out Cam. The schedule was pretty tight. We had to do stills and video in only a couple hours because we were using real Quick Trip employees as the models, so it was pretty limited on their availability. Pretty much I had to come up with a lighting plan that would light the entire space and make it usable for stills and video, kind of simultaneously. So to light the space, we did a bounce with 2 20 by muslin rags and 3 1200Ds bounced into them. And then for some of the singles, we walked in some additional wrap. So for there, we just got a 6 by ultra bounce through a silk in front of that, and then shot a P600C. Now I think we probably walked in a flop or 2 on some of the close-ups, but other than that, I try to keep it pretty simple, just because how much we had to shoot and stills and video and And then for this last exterior shot, we pretty much kept it natural. Well, no, we didn't actually. We turned on any warm practicals we could, and then added 2 P600Cs. Just giving kind of like a warm wash from the back, one in the kitchen and then one over in that hallway to the right. Other than that, just waiting for the sun to set so we kind of get that blue hour feel. And then we just did a wet down on the concrete, obviously to give it a little bit more interest, some ping and the reflections and stuff. Next commercial is a little bit more complex, so lock in for me. So this commercial is for a company called Avis, which is a car rental company. And essentially they launching a new program called Avis First, which is like a first class experience for car rental, hence the name Avis First. The director for this one was Chris Neal, my best friend Chris.
My best friend Blaine.
If you don't get that reference, go ahead, click off this video and go watch Coco Melon, young ass. Anyway, the spot is pretty much about this dude who's traveling and just having the worst day ever. Wakes up late, can't find his stuff. He's running down the stairs with his luggage in the rain. Gets down there, the very generic, on purpose, rideshare app driver drives right past him. Long line of TSA, finally gets through, runs to the plane, and it's a gym bro eating a fat burrito next to him. Gets off the plane, finally sees the Avis rep who hooks it up for him. I think he gives him a coffee or something, and then, gives him a calm ending to his crazy day. And then the way that it's cut is they get a bunch of the frames overlaid on top of each other. So you have this shot here, and then this one pops up, this one pops up, this one pops up, this one pops up, this one pops up. It's like that through the whole film. It's like that through the whole commercial until the final shot. And then we shot all of this in 2 days. One day in Nashville, one day in Indiana. And we use Alexa Mini and Zeiss Super Speeds. So the first thing we did was this little apartment scene, which we were on like the 4th or 5th story of an Airbnb apartment thing. Unfortunately, out the window was not the most beautiful view. So on the scout, I talked to Art and had them throwing some shears and curtains and stuff on the window, just so we don't, see all that business. Well, we did have a balcony. It's pretty small out there. So largest frame we could fit out there was like an 8 by. So we did an 8 by ultra bounce with a 1200D going into that. Now typically stay away from ultra just because the quality of light feels very, very harsh, especially if you're going like 1200D or something direct into it. I just find it feels a little bit unnatural most of the time. But since we had the shears making it kind of into a book light, I think it felt fine and it still felt natural. And then I'm pretty sure camera right in a hallway, we had a P600C with a Chimera on it. And that was just to give him a little bit of wrap. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did because I remember Art having to take the door off the hinges to get it in there. Only other thing we added was a couple flops, camera left, just to add some more contrast into it because the whole room was white, so you get a bunch of return everywhere. The schedule was pretty tight on this one as well, so kind of just need to be able to light the room and then get the wide, pop in, do the inserts, and get out of there. So when we came in and did the inserts, like under the bed, zipper, all that business, we just turned off the P600C in the hallway. That way, I don't know, it just felt kind of saucy when we got off the wide. I felt like we didn't really need the wrap at that point. Then we traveled over to a plane set to shoot the next scene. And I don't know if it was the pictures that were deceiving or if we just imagined it was gonna be big in there, but it was like way smaller of a room and like a warehouse than we thought it was gonna be. It's like initially I had planned to do like a big daylight bounce, it's cool light going into it, and then shoot some park cans through the windows to give like direct hard sun. Anyway, so that was not gonna happen because we got in there and it was like literally probably like 6-7 inches between the plane and the wall. So we couldn't even fit like a frame back there, much less any like lights. So anyway, pivoted as you always have to do in this line of work. So ended up kind of going for just like a overcast, more soft look. So what we ended up doing is just clipping the rags themselves to the wall in a warehouse and then bouncing light into that. And I wanted a little bit of variance in the hardness that was coming out of the bounce, if that makes sense. And the reason why, I guess in my head, very rare will you ever find like a true single source out in nature, if that makes sense. Like you walking down the street, right? You're gonna see bounce from this wall, from this building, you'll see it from the clouds, you see it from the street, you see it from the car that drives by, the window, you get a hard ping off that. So even on a cloudy day, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you might have a cloud that's right over here, one further away, maybe there's a peak of sun going in through. So we ended up getting a 12 by ultra, clipping that to the wall. That's kind of like the baseline bounce. And then what we did is we just clipped a few different silks to the ultra bounce itself. So you kind of have like a gradient of softness. And then for fixtures, we just use a couple panel lights. I think it was P600Cs or P300Cs, one of the two. And then the last thing to bring it all together is we made a row of flops, camera right, kind of as like the other side of the fuselage, because that bounce is giving spill everywhere. So it, didn't look like the inside of a plane. And then what we did with the row of flops is we just kind of messed with the gaps in between them to make it feel like there could be windows on the other side but still retain shape. So just tweaked opening and closing them, moving around, getting the little gaps and spills through till it felt right to my eye. And then shot that, there's like a dolly shot going across the seats. And then obviously a couple inserts of people and our lead guy and his phone and, all that business. Then we did some real life traveling to a real life airport. First setup we did at the airport was him sitting at the gate. And you can see evil Chris sitting in here. Not Chris Neal. That's the director. That's good Chris. This is evil Chris. He was a producer and the AD. He's like the nicest guy ever. We just differentiated the two between evil Chris, who's the AD and producer, and good Chris. We can see what's kind of naturally going on in his face. There are windows on the left side of the camera, and then he's getting a lot of warm spill from those overheads. Those overheads were motion sensing, which is pretty common in buildings like airports and such. No way to turn them off, so we just had our G&E team go up and clip Doobie to as much as we could of it to kill most of that spill. And then they threw up a couple of 12 by 20 solids on camera left and just killed that whole window and all the spill that was coming through. Since we never were looking that way, we just denied those. And then for the key, we did a 600X book light with Muzz as the bounce and then a bed sheet as the diff. I really might need to go buy like a king size bed sheet and just keep it in my bag because it really worked perfectly for this. And you can see he's getting some direct from the window, which kind of adds a nice like almost edge from that key side. And then the last thing we did was some type of solid or net to bring down the level on those seats in the foreground. And then for the close-ups, we kept everything pretty much the same. Adjusted the level on the key till it looked right. Added some more solids to kill any other spill that we were getting from the overheads, reflections on the phone, double shadows, etc. Pretty much anything that would kind of take you out of the world, we just mitigated. And truthfully, for a lot of this, it's just trusting your eyes and doing what looks right to you. You know, a director is counting on you to make sure that you can make things look good, but also keep it consistent. So that way when you cut, it doesn't look like two different worlds. Honestly, I don't find too much rhyme or reason with a lot of my work. It's just doing what feels right for the scene or for the project as a whole. I use things like false color and a meter to check exposure, but I'm really not the DP who's worried about ratios and all of that. I just really light to my eye and what feels right. After we shot that scene out, we had a bunch of insert montage stuff to get him running up the escalator, the camera being hard mounted to his luggage bag going around the, I don't know, what do you even call that? Baggage claim? It's baggage claim something. Anyway, him scanning his boarding pass and it beeping red, and then him walking outside and everybody walking against him. A couple of people like bump into him and hit his shoulders. For a lot of these like insert montage pieces, you might not have time to make a 12 by book light. So what I find myself doing is really just worrying about finding a good angle. And if there's things that I don't like about the light per se, I'll make sure that they're things I know I can pretty easily fix. All we did for this one was grab 2 flops, hang those over the head to kill those same warm overhead lights that were spilling all over. And then we just got a tube, daylight bounced it to the windows. I think those windows had tint on them, so we set it closer to like 6,500 to get that same feel. And then we just threw that in there as a little edge to add some shape into it. For this walking shot of him going against the crowd, we just flew a couple of 12 by solids, camera left, to bring in a little bit of contrast, but still kind of match the world that was going on. I feel like finding a good angle and direction to shoot in with where the light is already doing nice things just saves you a bunch of work. You can do a good bit of shaping, but no amount of shaping is ever gonna fix a bad angle, so to speak. Last shot of the day was this movie winner, and obviously on something like this, 90% of it is blocking and angles. Usually how I work in these situations is first talk to the director, see what they need to see what the action is, what the important points are, what we don't want to see in the background, what we might want to see in the background. Figure out all of that and then come up with a plan that works best for the blocking and lighting that will achieve everything it needs to for the shot, but also make it as good looking as you can. And truthfully, 90% of it is finding a director who cares more about this thing being good than getting an ego boost and telling everybody what to do so they can go home and feel like they did it all. And no glaze, but I really am glad that I get to work with the directors that I do. People like Chris, who are just humble as can be, but really care about making something good and listen to people and collaborate and obviously have a vision and a way to achieve that, but also they listen to the people they hire and lean in on their expertise. Anyway, shout out Chris. This turned out to be one of my favorite commercials I've done.
My best friend.
Chris. The last spot I want to talk about is a commercial I shot for DAV, or Disabled American Veterans. This spot is called The Call. The concept is essentially a Marine chilling at the crib. He gets a call to deploy. During his deployment, he calls back home, see his daughter's birthday, etc. And then his wife gets a call from the military that he was injured. After he comes back home, he gets depressed dealing with the injury, and that's when his wife makes the call to DAV to get him some help. The male lead in this was a real Marine veteran, and he killed it. He did such a good job. The director for this project, Jordan Martin, he's a great dude, super kind. He explains things in a way that's easy for the talent to understand, and he's also a veteran himself, and so I think him having that connection with the talent really helped the talent be able to give a more honest performance. We shot this in Tulsa, 2 days, all at one location. And then we used the same package, mini and super speeds. We had a full prep day on location for this one, which is pretty rare, but it's really nice when you do get it. It allows you, director, producers, art department, gaffer, all the department heads to go and walk through the space and really talk about each shot. Having this not only helps with the schedule, art department knowing what to dress and what not to dress, but I feel like it also really frees you up to think through things before you got 40, 50 people sitting around waiting. First shot we'll go over is this shot of the mother looking at her husband who is in the other room, standing looking out the window, all depressed and sad. So we put a couple B7Cs in the lamps. Now I'm pretty sure outside all we had working was a 12 by Muzz with a 1200X going into it. And then on his shot, we just did the same thing, put that 1200X in the Muzz outside. And then I think we might have walked in a flop or something to add a little contrast on them. Or I should say add a little more contrast, because definitely plenty there. And I think in the shot of the mom, we probably had some neck playing camera right, couple flops or a 8 by T-bone. Again, if you get the blocking and the eye lines and the angle, then everything worked out in a way that favors you. You really don't have to do as much work, and it'll probably end up looking better. Other scene I wanted to go over is this early morning scene when he comes in and says bye to his daughter before the deployment. And this one was actually night for day. We wanted to have the control to change the level to make it feel like early morning, and then in a later scene we wanted it to feel a little bit brighter. So this being on the second story, it definitely gave us a couple of issues, particularly because I didn't want to diffuse from the inside of the window, because you'd lose all those, I don't know what you call them, cross beams or little window frame and all that business. So my gaffer, Corey Robinson, shout out Corey, what he did is he got a roll of 216 and he folded it like 3 or 4 times, made it a pretty long cut, and then got that and leaned it up against the window from the outside. That way when you shine light through it, you have that really, really thick diffusion, kind of making it look like an overcast day. So then all he had to do is stick up the 1200X and shine that through direct, and we could control output, color temp, all of that we needed. And then for the close-ups, we just dialed in the intensity till it felt right. Anyway, hope that gives you a little insight into how I solve some of these problems and the tips and tricks I use to mimic natural light. Yeah, as always, if you got any questions, feel free to leave me a comment or shoot me a DM. Be happy to get back with you. Yeah.